Hey guys, what's happening? Grincherz here, back with another video. Today I'll be doing Dueling on a Budget, an orb purchase guide for all of you new duelers out there who may not quite know which orbs to buy first. I'll be doing some general tips for all players as far as how they should approach purchasing orbs, and then I will break down each faction and which orbs are best for them. So let's get to it. My general tips here. We have tip number 1, core orbs are worth the most spirit. This is absolutely true across the board. You get the best legendary drop rates as well as epics, just because there are more legendaries and epics. I believe the recorded numbers are on average 1 in 4 for a legendary in a pack, and a lot of people record numbers much higher than that. So the thing about core orbs to remember is they will always be worth more spirit. So if you're going to dump a lot of gold on orbs or money, you'll probably get the best return on core orbs. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't buy Shimzar or Unearthed Prophecy or any of the other expansions that we have. It just means that if you are looking for the most return for your buck, this will definitely prove the best method. Next up, we have craft what you need from Shimzar and Prophecies. This proves true for almost every faction. There's not really a faction besides maybe Songhai who would really want to go orb diving for a bunch of stuff from Shimzar, for example. Cassavode needs a lot of stuff from Shimzar, but Songhai, they got a lot of great tools, but that I wouldn't necessarily say to go and buy a bunch of Shimzar orbs just because you're Songhai. Your best return is still going to be on those core orbs, and you'll probably get enough to craft what you need. The thing about core orbs is that they're just so useful across all of the factions because they have the most cards. There's like 400 cards in the core set. So by and large, you'll just get the most investment. So try not to get too gung-ho on buying a bunch of orbs when you're hunting for that one card when you might just be able to craft it. Next up, buy Bloodbound and Ancient Bonds last. Now this talks about gold. I will be talking about which ones are best for your money if you're going to be spending the $20, because as an economic value, they're actually very, very nice, because you do get 3 copies of each card. There's no duplicates. So if you're going to be throwing the money at them, they're definitely worth the investment. But if you're only hunting for a very specific card, I would definitely prioritize them last. The only time I would probably recommend to change from this strategy is if you're Vetruvian, as Blood of Air makes or breaks the faction right now. So, and that means you would really want to hunt that card down. But unless you really want that card, I would probably just wait until you have everything else you could possibly want from all your core orbs, craft what you need from the expansions, and then go orb hunting if you're going to do this completely free to play in those last sets. So, like I was saying, as far as orbs go in Rise of the Bloodborne, if you are an Abyssian, Lyonar, or Vanar player, you benefit greatly from purchasing the whole expansion. They have a ton of versatile cards that really, really have made it into competitive play across the board. Like, they've retained all sorts of stuff. Like, Abyssian has Punish for Cassava. There was also Necrotic Sphere. There's Grandmaster Varix Furiosa. There's a ton of great cards that, if you're looking for value from this expansion, you can definitely get it. Lyonar has Trinity Oath, Scintilla, and if you're a Zeron player, you could use Draining Wave and Excelsius. There's a lot of great stuff for you there. And Vanar got Frigid Coronas, Concealing Shroud, and Feeble, Grandmaster Embla. They got a lot of great tools, so each of these factions really benefit. The downside is that Songhai, Vetruvian, and Magmar, if these are your factions there, you really didn't get a whole lot, with the outliers being Geomancer for Songhai, Zephyr for Vetruvian, and Tectonic Spikes for Magmar. Now, while there are other cards in this expansion that you would get that you could use, it's just not necessarily what I would recommend to a newer player. So that is it on Rise of the Bloodborne. Ancient Bonds, however, it's the flip, with the difference being that Vanar got positives from both of these expansions. So Vetruvian, they got Blood of Air, as well as a few other great tools. Most notably, their Golem deck was really nice. So if you really want to play Vetruvian, I highly recommend hunting down that Blood of Air from Ancient Bonds. Magmar got Lava Slasher. They also got several other great cards. Vanar got Circulus and Mana Death Grip, which broke them for the last few months. So great cards for each of these factions. Abyssian really didn't get anything. They got the new Arcanist support and a couple of meme cards like Blood Echoes. Lyonar got Golems, not really what you're looking for as far as competitiveness. And Songhai really didn't get anything. They got Bangle, that was it. The rest of it, fairly flatlined. So this is just from the most competitive standpoint. There are still great cards, like for example, I say Calligrapher flatlined, but some people do get great usage out of it. It depends on what you're going for, but this is just my general player recommendation as far as looking to make competitive decks. So with that in mind, I'm now going to jump into the faction section. Let's talk about Lyonar. So I'm going to break down both of these generals and give you an overall idea of what each path looks like, because both of them have kind of a different idea of what orbs they want and a different crafting style. So let's jump into Argion. Core orbs are the best by and far. They definitely have more benefits, just because you get the very staple cards like Circle of Life, Holy Immolation, Elix could be great. There's a bunch of very good cards of high quality from the old set that will get you a lot of mileage, and a lot of Argion decks don't really tend to break away from some of their oldest iterations, so you really don't need to worry too much about out-of-date stuff when you're just purchasing core orbs. Like I said, there's also the best rate of spirit that you can get, so you really aren't missing out. One thing that I recommend, and I should have mentioned this in my the earlier part, but 3 core to 1 prophecy will probably benefit you the greatest turnout overall if you're just going to buy flat out orbs with your gold. Now, this is because I think personally it breaks the monotony of just opening core orbs, not getting anything spicy, and you might get lucky. You might get that Thunderhorn, you might get some of those other legendaries that you were really hoping to get from prophecies, but you felt tied to buying core orbs because you still didn't have a full collection. So if anything, I would go 3 core, 1 prophecy, and you're good. Next up, Trinity Oath from Rise of the Bloodborne. High priority as far as Lyonar goes. Now, this is kind of after you have the majority of what you want from your core set. But once you start looking to upgrade, Trinity Oath is a staple in almost every Lyonar deck to this day. It's just amazing card draw. It's got healing in it, so if you end up playing Zeran, it's got even better synergy with her. There's so many ways to utilize this card that I would highly recommend hunting down this card, if not purchasing the whole set. So, as far as Ancient Bonds goes, though, I would skip it if you're only interested in Argion, and even more, and like Zeran still doesn't utilize it all that much. There's some Golem decks out there that these guys play, but if you're looking for the most competitive variants, no one's really shown off or shown to the world how Golems for Lyonar could be great. So I would wait until either they become broken or you just want to explore the archetype as a personal thing. It's not on my recommendation, but feel free to do it. And as far as Shimzar goes, as far as Argion is concerned, you just skip it. You don't buy any of the orbs. If you want any of the cards, like there's a couple buff cards, I believe, that you would want potentially for Argion in particular, like Afterblaze. Yeah, Afterblaze, Ironcliff Heart. They have kind of okay. Sunwisp. These cards can be crafted very easily, and I wouldn't really go orb hunting for these cards. I would definitely stick to the core orbs as far as your purchase goes. For Zeran, likewise, core first. She has a couple cards from Shimzar that you want to craft. You got your Sunforged Lancers. There's room for like Lucent Beam. Some people play Sunwisps for Cycle. I mean, there's a few ways to go about it, but Sunforged Lancer is about the pinnacle of what you really want from Shimzar. Not enough to go orb hunting, I just recommend crafting it. Trinity Oath and Scintilla from Bloodborne are a little bit more important for Zeran than Argion, because they kind of make the deck. It enables her healing synergies, it allows her to play a lot of combo cards with her heals, and not really run out. So I highly recommend, if you're going to main Zeran, you should go ahead and just get these cards in one way or another. As Prophecy is concerned, it's actually shown a lot of cards to have great synergies with Zeran, like Sanctify, Sunrise Cleric. I believe War Judicator is great for both of these generals. Aperian's Claim is also great. That was worth a mention for Argion. And then there's the Alabaster Titan. There's a lot of great cards from Prophecies, which is why I recommend that 3-to-1 orb ratio, but I would still craft as needed. I don't think it's good enough to go, if you don't have your core orbs purchased, if you don't have those Holy Immolates, I don't think you should be prioritizing anything from Prophecies as far as orbs is concerned, because you just can't get those staples like you normally can. But that doesn't mean that you can't buy Prophecy orbs. They're just slightly less important than getting those cores. And once again, Ancient Bonds, just skip it. Not even worth mentioning. Gold Vitriol, maybe, if you really want it, if you really want to try that style. I used it myself, and I found it to be somewhat underwhelming, but some people really like it. And if you're one of those people, it could be worth a shot. But as far as like the whole opening a bunch of set orbs for it without having your cores first, I don't recommend it. So that's it for Lyonar. Let's move on to Songhai. Now, Songhai, they actually are probably the only faction in the game that really make use of their Shimzar set. For example, in Kalios, you want your cores, but in Shimzar, you actually got a lot of great cards like Crescent Spear, Battle Pando, Grandmaster Zendo, Key Beholder, Katara. These are all very staple cards in a lot of decks. Key Beholder, kind of a flavor card, and Crescent Spear as well. But these cards have made a lot of great Songhai decks look even better than they really were, just because of how well they were able to be utilized. A lot of people are under the impression that Katara broke Inner Focus enough to get Inner Focus nerfed. So it's a great card. So don't feel like core is your only option. If you really want to open Shimzar orbs, Songhai can definitely benefit from it. But I would still maintain that core first policy. So like I said, Shimzar has many powerful tools. Prophecy has also given them a lot of tools. So if you really like crafting, Songhai is definitely a great class for you, or faction, because they have the new Sentinels, the Mind Cage Oni, the Mizuchi, and Gotetsu spell. Kalios has Flame Wreath, which is a common, thank goodness, so you can really make use of that quite fast. Eternity Painter's worth a mention as well, but he's legendary. But once again, those core orbs are definitely going to get you the most mileage, and then start crafting these cards from these other two craftable expansions. Skipping Ancient Bonds is perfectly fine, in my opinion. They really didn't give you a ton of options for Songhai. Like Kindling, Calligrapher, Sparrowhawk, Joseki, they were all very undervalued. Sparrowhawk and Kindling were actually, and Calligrapher, they're all Arcanists, and they're not really great in a main deck, but if you get them off of a blue Conjurer and you're a different faction, they're amazing. So it's kind of sad and ironic that Songhai didn't get anything worth mentioning. Bangle of Blinding Strike was probably their best card. There's no probably. It was their best card. Sorry about that. It was their best card from Ancient Bonds. So highly recommend skipping Ancient Bonds unless you really want some of these cards. But even then, I'd stay away. And Rise of the Bloodborne. Now, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but Geomancer is really the best card, the best takeaway from Rise of the Bloodborne. It changes your Bloodborne spell. It's completely dynamic. It makes a lot of different decks function, so it's a great card. It's just, there's a lot of extra cards in this expansion that as a Songhai player you didn't really want, Cobra Strike is okay. Whiplash is really bad. Twilight Fox is even worse unless you're backstabbing memeing. Ethereal Blades and Obscuring Blow were like okay, but nothing to really talk about. It's all about that Geomancer as far as top value. So, you know, buying a bunch of orbs for this, unless you really want the deck type, I'd just stay away. It's probably best to focus on other things, unless you really want that Geomancer, which by all means, go for it. But as far as Riva goes, she's very similar. They actually share a lot of the same tools between them. Core first, as always. Shimzar Prophecy secondary. You know, much the same here. And yeah, they're actually very identical, and we'll see that with Vanar as well. They're not really too different in terms of dex types. The biggest difference is that, for example, Kalios makes really great usage of Onyx Jaguar from Shimzar and the new Flame Wreath from Prophecies, while Riva is probably the better spell high general who uses Crescent Spear, Bangle, that type of stuff, because she, you know, her Bloodborne spell is, or Bloodbound spell, sorry, is the Heartseeker, which, you know, adds an extra target that they have to deal with besides your artifacts, so she's kind of the better general there, but overall they share a lot of the same cards, a lot of the same themes, so you can't go wrong with this strategy for both of these generals. So let's jump on into Vetruvian. Now, Vetruvian, they're one of the factions that really need to dive into one of these side expansions first, because Blood of Air from Ancient Bonds really made them competitive. They got a lot of nerfs over a long time during the Core and Shimzar days, namely like Siphon Energy, Third Wish was broken, then it wasn't, then it was, then it wasn't, so they got a lot of help, but it didn't come until Ancient Bonds with Blood of Air. This was their ranged target removal, and it's absolutely necessary to really function as the faction, because otherwise you'll find yourself basically playing pin the tail on the donkey, or the carrot on the stick, whatever metaphor you want. You just kind of run around the board as your opponent puts a thing out of your reach until you can't deal with it. But after Blood of Air, the rest of your core orbs are very much high value. Crafting very small amounts from Shimzar, like Elemancer and Falcius for Xerix. Skipping the Bloodborne section for Xerix is completely okay. I would not even bother looking at Rise of the Bloodborne. They didn't get anything. Crafting from Prophecies is necessary, definitely after you get that Blood of Air. Blood of Air is always going to be your number one removal as Vetruvian, and it will really make you competitive. So, pretty much same principles as most factions, not too much to talk about. Core, then Blood of Air, and you can craft from Shimzar, and then, you know, skip that Bloodborne, craft from Prophecy, good to go. For Saj, a lot of the same. She utilizes a lot of cards from the core set, like Wildfire Ankh is a high staple in most Saj decks. She uses a lot of the normal Vetruvian control mechanics. She uses a lot of neutral cards from the core set to really maintain that board presence, like Sunset Paragon, stuff like that, you know, often gets overlooked. Star's Fury is a finisher because there's different ways to play her, but she really utilizes those core orbs much like Obelisk Xerix does. But Falcius from Shimzar, Blood of Air from Ancient Bonds make her exceptional. So you really need to get your hands on those cards if you want to play competitive Vetruvian. Otherwise, you'll probably find yourself, you know, feeling outclassed without Blood of Air. It's kind of sad, but in a way, it really was necessary. But once again, craft is needed from Prophecy, and there is a Zephyr from Rise of the Bloodborne, which I didn't mention for Xerix because it's not very useful, but this lets your general attack in a frenzy, which is, you know, pretty good for Saj, since her Bloodborne spell attacks does that extra damage to minions. So pretty good to get that if you can get it for a Saj main. It kind of makes her a little more high cost than Xerix, because you have to go into the other small expansion, but it's not too bad if you don't get it. But just make sure you get that Blood of Air and you'll be okay. All right. Now that we're done with Vetruvian, not too much to talk about, but let's jump into Abyssian. First thing you need to know about Lilith is that she's a core girl. All of, if not, or most of, if not all of her strategies revolve around stuff that has been in the game forever. Spectral Revenant, number one of the best legendaries in the game. Deathfire Crescendo, Soul Grimoire, those are very, very important core set cards for Lilith, and she really didn't, pull too much from the expansions, even in most of her swarm decks. Her mid-range type swarm strategies with a bunch of Wraithlings, there really isn't much to talk about. Shimzar, she really didn't use it. Cassava really did, but there was nothing in Shimzar besides Sphere of Darkness. If I pull up the list here, I'm just going to double confirm this, but Shimzar, yeah, there's Ooze, which I wouldn't play today because Thunderhorns everywhere. Lurking Fear, there's nothing really going on here. You could play Inkhorn Gaze if you really want to. Just craft, if you want some of those cards, craft them, but I would stay away. You really need those Deathfire Crescendos, those Soul Grimoires, those Revenants, those Shadow Dancers, those Blood-Tide Priestesses, those cards from the core set that really made Lilith Swarm in order to really compete with a lot of the higher end decks. So core orbs will be your friend for Lilith. There is a Furiosa in Rise of the Bloodborne that you can go ahead and hunt down. It helps out your Wraithlings quite a bit. It's not too bad. Otherwise, there's nothing else. Ancient Bonds was pretty bad for Abyssian. And Prophecies, once again, I would just craft as needed. Those core orbs are going to be much higher priority still, and Prophecy is just going to give you flavor. So Lilith's pretty easy. Cassava, however, she's what we call the diva of Duelyst, I guess, because she is the most expensive general to craft for, bar none. She needs 3 Revenants, she wants Obliterates, which are legendary, she wants Ghost Azalea, which are legendary, she wants Klaxons, which are legendary. Now, you don't need all of those, but if you want to pick one for her creep synergy, it's going to cost you. So she needs a lot of high-cost legendaries to really get up and running, so core orbs, save up, craft those Shimzar cards. You could pull Shimzar cards if you're playing them and Songhai. That could be a good benefit for you, but the legendary rate is lower in Shimzar, and you would just probably better off looking for those core orbs. Now, she actually made pretty good usage of Rise of the Bloodborne cards. Punish and Necrotic Sphere, great control cards for her. Not too much to go into after that. Ancient Bonds, they didn't get anything, unless you really want to play Arcanist or something. And once again, craft as needed from Prophecy. Not too much to go into. As far as Magmar is concerned, though, he's kind of all over the place, but it's pretty easy to pick what you want. If you want to play aggressively, you're going to pick a lot of core orbs. If you want to play mid-rangey, you might pick up a couple cards here and there. But for the most part, most Vath decks will go from core. You'll pick up a Thumping and Shimzar, maybe a couple extra cards here and there. Then as you get your core filled out, you'll probably prioritize this Lava Slasher. This probably should have been number 3, but Lava Slasher is a little better than Drogon or Tectonic Spikes. But Lava Slasher really made mid-range Vath a thing. It's a really powerful card. Drogon and Tectonic Spikes are nice from Rise of the Bloodborne. They're not at any means like necessary to play Vath. A lot of people don't even utilize Drogon or Tectonic Spikes, and instead opt for things like Spelljammer. But those are things that you can pick up from Rise of the Bloodborne should you want them. But Lava Slasher from Ancient Bonds should be your priority over those. And kind of the same thing as all the other ones. Once you get these cards, then you can really focus on your Prophecy needs. But Prophecy is definitely the icing on the cake for Vath. There's not much there that you can make usage of without having your core deck already put together. So core orbs first, craft for Prophecy later. Starhorn, he is a kind of a one-trick. He has the ability to play several different combo decks because he's able to draw cards and then therefore increase the rate at which he would be able to play these combo decks together. However, Almost every Starhorn deck benefits the most from having Decimus, which is a core set card, and Tectonic Spikes, which is a card from Rise of the Bloodborne. This combo is 9 damage for 7 mana. You can make it faster with Flash Reincarnate, and you can combo your Bloodborne spell for more damage and Entropic Gaze, from Rise of the Bloodborne for more damage. But at the core, it's that Decimus, Tectonic Spikes, 6 cards, almost every single Starhorn deck, just because it is such a lethal finisher. Even Vath sometimes runs it. But this combo almost makes the general very, very unique in that respect. So once you get those 2 cards, you can really start opening up your options with Starhorn, because those are basically what he uses exclusively for most of his lethals. Lava Slasher from Ancient Bonds, once again, great pickup. Thumping Wave from Shimzar for that ranged removal, and then Prophecies as needed. You know, a lot of people don't really think Burn Starhorn in particular got a lot of support from Prophecy, which is fine. But if you do want to run some of the more unique cards that Magmar got, or some of the neutrals, then you can craft them after you have your core set. So, lastly, we have Vanar, which is pretty straightforward. Faye and Kara play very similar decks these days, and there's not a whole lot of differentiation, because they both can utilize the Arcanist package. They both can utilize ramp very well. So as far as Faye is concerned, get your core, get all your removal. You know, most of it is basics, so you probably have them. Aspect of the Ravager, the Chromatic Cold, those are very staple. But once you pick up most of the neutrals that you'll be building decks with, you can start moving on to crafting things like Frostburn, Aspect of Shimzar. Now, the reason I have Aspect of Shimzar in here is because it combos very well with the new card Thunderhorn, turning their minion into a battle pet and then just putting a Thunderhorn in front of it, forcing it to attack, is amazing. So it's become a very high priority craft for most Fays with Thunderhorn. But otherwise, if you're going to be playing any reasonable amount of Vanar, you'll want Circulus, Mana Death Grip from Ancient Bonds. They very broken cards, broken-ish. They're very strong. You'll definitely want those. And Frigid Corona from Rise of the Bloodborne. And I have Embla down for Kara, but I wanted to mention it here as well, that she can play it as, if you're playing that ramp strategy with Crystal Wisps and stuff like that, you can make usage of almost any late-game card. So, and there's also Ghostly Seraphim from Rise of the Bloodborne. Or I'm sorry, Ancient Bonds, who was a great card, so you can look forward to that one as well. Kara, you'll want your core first. Again, I feel like I say this every time, but it's true. You want your cores, then you want your Frostburn, Aspect of Shimzar, Circulus, Mana Death Grip, Ancient Bonds, Frigid Corona, Embla, Thunderhorn as needed. Not too much to remember. You kind of get the same gist of this every single time, but I did want to break down every general as we get this going. Kara can utilize things from the core set that Faye kind of can't. She makes better usage of swarm cards like Voice of the Wind or Kron or Jack's True Sight in some ways. So you can hold on to those ideas if you really want to. You know, combine them with Razorback for great effect. That'll get you really a lot of mileage out of her, but for the most part, they can play identical decks, and you won't notice too much of a difference, except that Faye has somewhat more of a consistent finisher, while Kara's minions tend to be a little stronger. So, not too much difference. Either way, that is it for the guide, folks. I hope this wasn't too long, and I hope this gave you a general direction of how you should be prioritizing your gold spending, and maybe if you were thinking of spending money, how this would work out for you. So if you liked the video, go ahead and leave a comment, like, subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.